You know these forces, these political parties, these politicians who want to convince Poland and Poles that our main problem is Europe, that our enemy is Ukraine, that the European Union is unnecessary, and that Germany is the biggest enemy. Somehow they forget about Russia, about the dangerous neighbor, which is waging war just beyond our borders, and sometimes this war crosses into our borders as well. This is, of course, support for Ukraine in the war with Russia. One can discuss our Polish-Ukrainian relations, but no one can doubt that supporting Ukraine in the war with Russia is our security. We do this for ourselves, for Polish men and women, for no one else. You know these forces, these political parties, these politicians who want to convince Poland and Poles that our main problem is Europe, that our enemy is Ukraine, that the European Union is unnecessary, and that Germany is the biggest enemy. Somehow they forget about Russia, about the dangerous neighbor, which is waging a war just beyond our borders, and sometimes this war crosses into our borders as well. We cannot allow that betrayal, stupidity, and dirty deals to weaken our defense and our security. Today I call on all politicians. They often shout the loudest about Poland, raise their arms to God, invoke honor, but so as in the past, it is they who most frequently lead to serious problems, and sometimes to failures. Some end up somewhere in Belarus or Transnistria, but we must put an end to the bad policies of some politicians and parties here in Poland precisely for safety.
Możemy powiedzieć kiedyś Gruzja.
The threat has not changed. The threat still comes from the same side of the neo-imperial Russian Federation. 106 years ago, we would have said from the Bolsheviks. Today, we might quote the words of the late President Lech Kaczynski. At that time, ladies and gentlemen, prophetic. But I do not want to quote President Kaczynski. I want to use a paraphrase of his words, that we, our wonderful allies from the North Atlantic Alliance, whose ministers and attaches I warmly welcome today in Warsaw, may understand the moment we are in. Paraphrasing the words of President Lech Kaczynski, we can say, once Georgia, today Ukraine, tomorrow perhaps the Baltic states and my homeland, Poland, and once perhaps Berlin and Paris and the entire Western Europe. Therefore, today we must, in responsibility for Europe, for the North Atlantic Alliance, for the Polish soldier, do everything to win the Warsaw Battle in the 21st century without war.
Today, this is best seen in Poland and in the negotiations about a permanent American base, because this is no longer a position that asks for something. It is joint action. It is a joint strategy. It is Allied loyalty proven primarily by the soldiers of the Polish army.
The European Union is set to provide Ukraine with €1.5 billion in 2026 to procure medium and long-range missiles for its armed forces. The funding will come through the European Union's defense loan program, designed to strengthen Ukraine's military capabilities during the ongoing war. The new missiles are expected to support Ukraine's ability to carry out long-range strikes against Russian military infrastructure and strategic targets. The weapons are reportedly set to be produced through a joint venture between Ukraine and an unnamed European Union member state. Officials have not yet disclosed whether the missiles being developed will be cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, or a combination of both. Ukraine could receive as much as €40 billion from the European Union's €90 billion defense loan program by the end of 2026 if approved. Poland is now considering sending additional Patriot missile systems and interceptors to Ukraine, according to a report by the Kyiv Independent. The move comes after a suspected Russian missile reportedly entered Polish territory during a large-scale Russian attack on Ukraine on July 30th. Polish authorities scrambled F-16 fighter jets after an unidentified aerial object crossed into the country's airspace during the Russian missile barrage. Prime Minister Donald Tusk later said the object was most likely a Russian Kh-101 cruise missile that had inadvertently strayed into Polish territory. Tusk also said Warsaw would review the possibility of providing additional military support to Ukraine following the latest cross-border security incident.
I also spoke yesterday, as you know, coincidentally in Lublin with President Zelensky about what is happening in the air over Ukraine and what might happen in Poland. And we both declared a readiness for full cooperation in all possible coalitions, teaming over the safe skies above us and above Ukraine. I know, that today it may not be very popular to speak well of Ukraine, but I know, and this knowledge is much more important, that the security of Poland depends directly and straightforwardly on the effective actions of the Ukrainian military, also in the air. If the Ukrainians had much more of what they are constantly asking for, perhaps that ballistic missile would not have flown into Poland. I have no reason to be an advocate for Ukraine in matters of patriots. What is on my mind and heart is how to best secure Poland. Ukraine is shooting at them. Ukraine is really eliminating Russian targets because it is at war with Russia, and it is in our interest to support them in these matters, keeping in mind what we obviously need in a way that enhances our security. So after this event, paradoxically, I will, together with the Prime Minister, consider how to provide further assistance as quickly as possible for Ukraine, also with additional patriots if needed, because our intention is for Ukraine not to lose this war. After my conversation with Zelensky, the matter is quite evident. The next 100 days could decide the outcome of this war. It's 50-50. There are many mechanisms in the hands of the President of the United States and a few other people. Decisions, for example by Elon Musk regarding Starlinks and other systems, are of great significance. So, in a sense, it happens somewhat outside of politics as well.
Patriot air defense systems have remained one of Ukraine's most critical tools for protecting its skies against repeated Russian missile and drone attacks. However, interceptor missile stocks are reportedly shrinking as U.S. defense manufacturers struggle to keep pace with growing global demand. President Volodymyr Zelensky has repeatedly urged Ukraine's international partners to supply additional Patriot systems, along with more interceptor missiles.
Upgrade your news experience with the all-new HT app. Download now.
$25 करोड़ गरीब गरीबी को परास्त करके बाहर निकले।
For the good of our nation, let's work together and let's truly make America great again.
The fastest news breaks.
Requested PM saying that look, you will have to speak to Putin and to Zelensky.
The biggest news makers.
The relationship with India is probably the most important bilateral relationship the US will have for the rest of this century.
The capital delivered quite an election result today.
Expert analysis.
The million-dollar question today is how to stop this dance of death.
Ground reports.
I'm standing at the crossroad of the Kumbh Mela. Behind me are more than 100 entry ghats.
Long-form interviews.
Exclusionary politics is reflected in Manipur case as well. You don't bother because this is a small state.
Have you ever wondered what happens when a banking dynasty meets tides of world history, intrigue, and a dash of myth?
Why exactly did the US topple the Sheikh Hasina government?
HT videos. We don't just break news, we break it down.